Lucy Letby, serial killer. Why did she kill? Part 4. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Lucy Letby has been sentenced to life imprisonment and has been given what is known as a whole life order in respect of each of her convictions. This means she will never be released from prison. She will spend the rest of her life in jail. Mr. Justice Goss gave his sentencing remarks an hour or so ago. In that, he said that this was a cruel, calculated, and cynical campaign of child murder involving the smallest and most vulnerable of children. He explained, you created situations so that collapses and causes of collapses could not be obvious. You checked up on parents. There was a deep malevolence bordering on sadism. You have no remorse. There are no mitigating factors. The offences are of such severity to require a whole life order. Damning words from the presiding judge. We'll be returning to the judge's comments at a later juncture to aid us in determining what it is that Lucy Letby is. But for now, we're going to continue by looking at some earlier descriptions of her from a variety of individuals. When she was younger, she was described by people at her hospital as like Miss Perfect, maybe slightly awkward, but sociable. She'd go on nights out with the hospital staff into bars and nightclubs in Chester. Her parents used to think butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. She's literally the last person anybody would suspect as a killer. Again, essentially, a complimentary view of her. However, note the reference to Miss Perfect and butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. Is this that perhaps her perfection was too much to be believed? Or are those perhaps just observations with the benefit of hindsight? What did the police think about her? Detective Chief Inspector Nicola Evans, who spent 6 years analysing Letby as part of the police investigation, described her in one word: beige. Perhaps she's been listening to my commentary on the Duchess of Delusion. There isn't anything outstanding or outrageous that we found out about her as a person, Evans said. She was an average nurse. She was what you would say is a normal 20-something-year-old. But clearly there was another side of that nobody saw and that we've unravelled during this investigation. Again, to the outside world, she portrays herself as a kind, ordinary individual who fits in, with no pattern of offending beforehand, not even difficulties with relationships, be they intimate, familial, or indeed with her colleagues. One of her friends, who didn't feature in the trial, but she and Letby go way back because they grew up together, are still in touch. Dawn spoke to a journalist and pointed out the Cathedral Green where she and Letby used to hang out, along with their favourite restaurants. That's where we used to spend lunchtimes away from all the popular kids, Dawn explained, as she and the journalist drove past the geography block of their old school. You weren't popular? The journalist asked. She laughed. No, we were the nerdy ones that concentrated on our studies and didn't mess around in the lessons, again demonstrating that Letby didn't have a reputation nor evidence of her being a disruptive pupil. The friends had moved on to sixth form college together, and while most of their circle had no firm career plans, Dawn told me that Letby was clear about her path. It was always her aspiration, her dream to become a nurse and to help babies. Dawn said, she told me she'd had quite a difficult birth herself and was quite poorly, and I think that's affected a lot of her life. Might it be that there was something evangelical about the behaviour of Lucy Letby? But was this being driven by emotional empathy that somehow went askew? Or was it never there to begin with, and her evangelical nature overtook common sense, overtook emotional empathy, perhaps eroding it to cause her to behave in the way that we know that she did? Her friend continued by saying that Lucy feels that's what she's called to do, to help children who might have been born in similar circumstances. Unwavering in her loyalty and belief that her friend was incapable of murder, might it have been that Lucy Letby had pulled the wool over her friend's eyes? Her friend let out a long sigh before answering, "The only way I'd ever believe that she's guilty is if she tells me she's guilty," she said. A very firm belief from a friend prior to the conviction that Lucy Letby hadn't murdered these children. A jury has found that she has. But again, that friend, perhaps with misplaced loyalty, or rather, perhaps with an honest view based upon what she had seen in Lucy Letby's behaviour, was very firmly of the view, I don't think that she's guilty. Repeatedly, there is a pattern of behaviour that demonstrates that what she did and has been convicted of doesn't sit at all with the behaviours beforehand. No complaints had previously been raised about Lucy Letby to the Nursing and Midwifery Council. In fact, she was once chosen as the face of a fundraising campaign by the Countess of Chester Hospital and appeared on a poster. She featured in the Chester Standard several times as part of the newspaper's support for the Baby Grow appeal aimed at raising £3 million to build a new neonatal unit at the hospital. Was she involved in this, driven by a genuine desire to help, or was she enjoying the attention of being the, quite literal, poster girl for the campaign? In 2012, she appeared in a photo holding a baby as part of a story on a person who had donated money to the appeal. And in 2013, she was the subject of a short interview about her job, in which she told the newspaper, "I hope the new unit will provide a greater degree of privacy and space for parents and siblings." Again, is it the case she wants to be involved because she truly cares? Or is it just a manufactured artifice designed to make her look good, to cause her to put herself in a position of trust so that nobody could suspect her, at least initially, of what she ended up doing? When she finished her degree in September 2011, she stayed on in Chester, and in January of the following year she was offered a position on the neonatal unit. There she looked after unwell and premature newborns and quickly progressed, qualifying as a Band 5 nurse, and in March 2014 completed specialist training to allow her to work with infants in intensive care. During the court proceedings, she said she had cared for hundreds of babies in the unit. "I enjoyed the intensive care work. That was my passion. All nurses on the unit have an area they prefer or excelled at. They knew I was happy." The nurse who worked with her described her as enthusiastic and keen to learn, which occasionally bordered on being a teacher's pet. Not somebody who would habitually turn up late, that wouldn't do what she was asked, that would fall out with colleagues, but rather was enthusiastic and keen to learn. Might it be that she wanted to portray herself in such a way because it was beneficial for her, that by being a teacher's pet, she was perhaps seeking to assert control over people by sucking up to them? However, she was not universally popular on the unit. The nurse said she rubbed some people up the wrong way with her air of superiority. Acting with an air of superiority is demonstrative of a sense of entitlement. Of itself, it doesn't mean that a person is a narcissist, but it provides us with another clue which might be useful to demonstrate that she thought that she was better than other people. That might actually have been born out of the truth. She was certainly industrious and was known to be hard-working and very involved, but nevertheless the lack of humility might be telling. There were people who thought she was stuck up, the nurse said. "I didn't think she was cold, but I could see why some people did. She liked things just so." Might that be demonstrative of need for control? And she stuck to the rules rigidly. But then again, sticking to the rules suggests accountability, or at least gave the impression that she did. She was always quick to point out the failings of others. Is that one-upmanship? A form of triangulation and asserting control? She'd always be the first person to tell you off if you'd done something wrong. Again, is that delighting in somebody else's misfortune and asserting control over them, or quite simply pointing out that somebody has done something wrong and they have, and therefore she's just doing her job properly? an intriguing individual, it has to be said. We're going to look in part 5 at more evidence that came forward through the investigation and her trial, which included her infatuation with a doctor. Join me there.